Hello and welcome back to JLXP. Week 7 LCS recap with Raz, once again, our bi-weekly episode. I got a couple tweets that wanted to know about the lost bet between Jat and Raz, where many of you may have seen the payoff on broadcast. I need to give the backstory. After week 3, FlyQuest were they 5-1 or were they 6-1?
I think they were 6-1. Let me quickly check.
They were pretty good. They were like way up there.
Yeah.
No, they couldn't have been 6-1.
5-1.
It was 5-1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I baited you into a bet about what they
did.
would do at the end of the split, and you committed to 12-6 or better. And I said, no way. Someone will eat something super spicy if that person is right or wrong. But when I wasn't on show, Golden Guardians took down FlyQuest for FlyQuest 7 loss, and you had to eat a giant bite of a habanero pepper.
Yeah.
Good Lord, that was painful.
I was definitely not going to be able to weasel out of that one. And I was like, oh, I know I'm going to have to take a bite. I've never had a habanero, but I know that, like, I'm, like, debatably fine with spice is how I would view it. Like, I can take mala spice from, you know, the usual tingly spice from China. So I was like, I can do this. Yeah. I know in my career, all right, I've sucked with spice. And I haven't been checked before. I have not been checked. And so I was like, I don't know how I'll handle this. I did it. At first, while I was chewing it, I was like, this is pretty easy. Was able to swallow it. And then it just came in. Like, it settled on my tongue. It started to burn as if there was lava. And, of course, like, before that day, I was sick a few days back. I think, like, 4 or 3 days back. And all the sickness was just a sore throat. And so I kind of like already had like a raspy voice at the time.
There.
Exactly. And so when I went through with it, I was like, okay, Dash was like, now call this replay. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't talk. I tried. I was like, I was like, no shot.
Watching it, I thought at first, it was funny because you're just like, oh, he's just sitting with the milk in. But then there was like a period of 1 or 2 minutes where you just looked miserable. But your miserable face looked like a little angry. So like the camera cut away from you and people like stopped talking. It's like, wow, Raz really just does not appreciate this level of stress. Like he is not into this at all, which is respectable. It's respectable.
I thought, like, for me, I was starting to question if it was going to end because
it lasts a long time. Like how long until it felt normal?
The entire desk, basically. It felt like until the end of desk because when I started talking about TSM, I was like, I finally felt comfortable to speak.
Yeah.
Because before that, I was like, anytime I did not have milk in my mouth, basically, it was like, no, this is burning. You have to quell it somehow. So thank God for the milk. At first, I had rejected it. At first, I had rejected the milk thinking, I don't need this.
Yeah, who needs milk?
Yeah, who needs milk? I got water. I've never had milk.
4 milks later.
Yeah, just chugging it. Thank God my stomach can handle milk. I never had an issue with drinking too much milk. But it really came in clutch. Even today, this morning when I came into the studio, my stomach was heavy and I knew the rumbling was coming.
Okay, well. I'm glad that when I said TL was 16-2, we didn't agree to any bet. Because I definitely was wrong on that, but there's just no consequence.
There was nothing.
There's none whatsoever. Yeah.
Mark faced the consequence, and he even doubled down with my bet by like having a habanero himself.
Yeah, he didn't take the same size bite though.
True, he didn't.
I respect the size of your bite. Let's talk about the week though, because it was an abnormal week, one would say.
Yes.
Top 2 teams in the LCS, TLC 9. Everyone just kind of expected them to win out after they faced each other in like the climactic battle last week. They both dropped games. They went 1-1. So the 2-0 teams ended up being TSM, which was the most shocking one, 100 Thieves and Golden Guardians. And we're not going to discuss like the behind the scenes drama that you can very easily find online about Peter Zhang if you look up the article there on the TSM subreddit by Richard Lewis. But so much stuff going on behind the scenes, clearly, for that team the entire year. The only thing they could do that would still surprise you is win.
Yeah.
and they did it. And they did it. What do you think about their play this week?
It was really good. Surprisingly good. Because even if they had lost, kind of reminded me of the first time they went up against C9, where it was like, oh, they were winning up until that
That was
point
close.
around Baron.
Hmm.
If they had a game like that, I would have felt like that was a sense of accomplishment because it felt like they were moving towards a direction and finding great improvement while the entire community was kind of laughing at their expense. The team, at the organization, the team, questioning the players' skills, players who had the success in the previous split.
Hmm.
MVP Spica, Tactical, who was an All Pro, Hooney, who was in the same boat. Like all of these players had found success in the previous split, and it's very easy to at that point just like turn your brain off, just think about the next split, and kind of check out. And that didn't happen at all. Not only was the win versus C9, it's so debatable actually to make a case for like which one was the most surprising win.
Mm.
Because versus C9, yes, they beat the best team in the league. That in and of itself should be the most shocking point. But like this game that they had versus IMT, they were in such a colossal pit in the early game. Like Svika must have just been like the most depressed you've ever been, basically dying on his red buff
Yeah.
because the Cassiopeia already like had a humongous lead from the Ash level 1. And then so Cassiopeia kills you at buff when you didn't have flash and didn't have smite, and so your early game is just doomed.
Super doomed.
And
Not only is mid
Cassio
lane
has
lost,
yeah,
jungle is lost, top lane should
yes,
be lost.
yes,
And then yeah, sure enough, they just win. They just
just like that.
they kept the gold close. They found the right fights. I think Immortals did not do a good job of punishing them whatsoever, especially with
Yeah,
having a 5-0 Cassiopeia and then not taking a single turret plate, not
yep,
diving top lane, not diving bot lane. At one point, they did dive mid lane, and that's how they got a couple kills. But that originated from a river fight before any of
yeah,
that happened. So Immortals is on downward spiral. They have a 7-game losing streak now after starting 4-4.
yeah.
Brutal. But one thing I do want to talk about TSM, I have a behind the scenes story and some graphical support for
Ooh,
this. I
I'm ready for
teased it
this.
for you, but I haven't told the story yet. And here it goes. So Tactical and I still chat from time to time. Former player, try to keep a good relationship with him, and he was very down after last week, where he has obviously been practicing and trying really hard, but they still lost, and he made like a big mistake in the dig game. Also, I've been golfing a ton. These things connect.
I'm ready for this.
Yeah, these things connect.
I need this to connect.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with golf. We'll eventually get to tactical, but I've been doing this golf program called Decade. Okay, it teaches a
Okay.
lot of different things, but one of the things it says is you are not as good as you think you are, which could probably just be applied to life and many League of
Yeah,
Legends players. But what it means with golf, and you're like decently familiar with golf, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. For those of you listening on podcast, I'll try and define this, but for those of you on YouTube, you get to see my Microsoft Paint. This is actually the picture I sent Tactical. Okay.
I love this so much that you sent. I would like to believe that you sent it to him with no context.
I tried to explain it. We were just chatting on Discord, like with typing. He didn't understand it. He still doesn't quite get it. So like,
Yeah.
the only thing he ended up taking away with this is like, oh yeah, so you're saying I like shouldn't play as aggressive? I'm like, yeah, but like just understand the reasonings for this. But okay, in golf, there's a thing called dispersion, and this is what I mean by people are not as good as they think they are. You think in golf that there's a flag stick there. I should try and hit the ball to the flag.
Yeah.
But no matter how good you are, you're not going to hit it to the flag every time. Even the very best players will hit a certain percentage left, they'll hit a certain percentage right, they'll hit a certain percentage long and short. For the purpose of this picture, I took out long and short and only did left to right. But what you see in this picture, okay, the black lines would be a very good player. That's as far left as they're going to miss if they aim at the flag, and
Yeah.
as far right as they're going to miss if they aim at the flag. The sand bunkery looking thing on the right would be a bunker, which is
Yeah.
bad to be in and hard to hit out of, right? And on the left, just imagine everything else is grass, right?
There we go.
But look at the dots. Look at the dots. 10 black dots, a couple of them close to the hole, 3 or 4 of them in the bunker, and a couple of them left of the hole. Then look at the blue dots. Same number on the green, same number extremely close to the hole, nothing in the bunker, and just more left. But it's better to be left than it is in the bunker. So the way you create that shot on the left is you actually just aim left. So it's counterintuitive, but it is just factually better. Are you following so far?
I got you.
Yeah.
This
so
makes sense.
By aiming left, you have exactly the same percentage chance of hitting the perfect shot as you do if you aim directly at the flag. Because you're going to miss right anyways some of the time.
Yes.
So many of the very, very best golfers do not aim at the flag. They aim where their dispersion is going to get them in the least amount of trouble, because it's pointless to aim at the flag in so many situations just because of natural dispersion. Cool.
I'm losing a chance at that hole in one.
No,
that's
you're not.
The problem here.
I'm
not.
That's what you think, right?
Yes.
But you're literally not, because you have the exact same chance of hitting it directly where you aimed from like 150 yards away as you do from hitting it 5 yards right of where you aimed.
Okay.
You'll still get the hole in one.
This.
It's not going to feel the same because you're like, oh, I didn't hit it exactly where you aimed. But the chances are exactly the same. So it's not about playing safe. It's actually just about playing correct. It's like this is what's so cool about this when I first realized it. It's like, you think if you're really dialed, like, oh, it's going to feel bad if I miss left when aiming left. Or like if I hit it exactly where I want to when I was aiming left. But over the long term, you're going to hit just as many right or just as many left, which is what I was trying to explain. And I think you got it.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I would say the takeaway would be, if I was in tactical position and this explanation came flying at my face.
Yeah. It's not perfect.
Is try not to think and overcomplicate it by playing quote unquote perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Just play the right way. And you'll probably end up playing perfectly anyways. Is that right?
That's exactly what I wanted to get across.
Okay.
And I think the way he took it was just like, oh yeah, instead of trying to force a limit play, like just kind of let a limit play come to me and then I'll do it then. Which he ended up doing in the C9 game when he like flashed in a Zeri by the Dragon Pit and got like a double kill. But just the mental thing of like, Tactical is a player who always tries to push his limits as much as possible. Yep. But like, I would say this to almost any player in League of Legends, probably even the shy, like, you are not as good as you think you are. So if you are playing on limits constantly and you're dying 35% of the time, pulling off the perfect limit play 35% of the time, and like actually having a good margin for pulling off 35% of the time, just like recalibrate that so you're dying less. Because in the instance where you were going for like a slightly safe play, maybe it wasn't as safe as you thought. But if you budget that in, you're still going to be able to pull off a perfect limits play probably just as often.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect analogy, but
you know,
I just thought it was cool because he did play a lot better this week.
Yeah, he played, of course, for the people, if you haven't seen it, the fact that he was able to get player of the week based off of like 2 incredible performances, which is just such a big jump up from like, which is TSM's like constant failures, of course. And a lot of it you can see off of either his performance or just off of anyone else's performance. But he came in clutch today, in the past 2 days, I mean. Yeah. And the team itself just got better.
The team played way better. Like, there's so many different reasons why they're able to win.
Yeah. And for me coming into this split, one thing that I was looking out for was the fact that you have, of course, Huni, Spica, Tactical, all of them at some point, all pro players, Spica and MVP, and all of these players have either been in a first place team or a second place team, right? Tactical was in the finals. Like, how jarring is it for you to come from that position to a last place spot? And like, I would imagine coming into this split, you already know, like, dealing with players, no one wants to learn the basics again. Like, you want to pick up from where you left off. And so when you get back into a start of a split and you're just learning all the basics because someone else on your team is at a different level than you, then that is really frustrating. And for Tactical, who had played with the best support in North America, and one of the world-class support, if you were to name 5 supports in the world, like, his name would come up, to now a player that's only had basically a 1 game or a few games in the LPL,
a few games
in
FPX, yeah.
Exactly. But for the most part, you're playing with players who are still in a developmental phase. Like, you can't, it is such a large recalibration, and you have to recalibrate. Like, you have to accept where you are. And that's the thing where with most players, it really sucks to think about that, where you're like, okay, this is where we are as a team. And we have to really go through the first steps again, and accept that that's the case, rather than forcing situations where, yeah, that would work if I was on a previous team. Like, it's easy to blame someone else for a mistake, but it's also understanding that it's actually just your fault. And I'm not saying this. I'm not throwing words in a Tactical's mouth. I'm
It's
just
just about
saying,
accepting responsibility for the
yes,
situation you're in,
yes,
even if the responsibility doesn't fall directly on you, and there are bigger
exactly.
reasons. But you can still take responsibility for your part, which is really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really tough. Obviously, they can make a lot of criticize a lot in how offseason played out. But in the end of the day, this was the cards that they played with, and now it's coming together, and it's great to be able to see that that with Shenya on board and everything, Takeover getting the chance to play in LCS, that it's starting to work.
Yeah,
So that's really nice to see.
and really quick, it's 99% likely that this is going to be one more week of play, and then they're going to have a large off time between summer split anyway.
Yeah.
Because we were looking into this before the show. Towards the end of broadcast, someone had told me that they're eliminated from playoffs. There might be a chance, like a really miracle scenario where they can get in, because they're at 4 wins and there's 3 teams at 7 wins. However, they have 0-2 records against 2 of those teams with 7 wins. So if they directly tied with either of those teams, they'd lose the tiebreaker. But I can't find the rules right now, but I believe if there was a 3-way tie between Golden Guardians, Dignitas, and TSM, they would have a 1-3 combined record against those teams, which I think would put them in like the bottom seed of a playoff where they could possibly make it to 6th. That's what I think. But that would require Golden Guardians can't win a game. TSM has to win all their games. And also Dig would have to lose all their games. And EG
It's really
plays
difficult.
Golden Guardians, so it's impossible for all of them to go 3s. So I'm going to say that.
And if you think practically as well, the fact that TSM has to go up against Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, like that already, it's like in and of itself. I mean, they go up against CLG again, but like those 2 teams should be able to beat TSM at their current form. So it is the most miracle of miracle runs out there, if that's possible.
For the most part, they're planning for summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a team that's planning for playoffs that I want to talk about next is 100 Thieves, because, dude, they got a 5-game win streak.
There it is.
But the question is,
back.
how reliable are those wins? They had the Golden Guardians game where they were down like 10K. They had the game today with the Twisted Fate Jinx where they got Cloud Soul, and then they like stole an Elder Dragon with a TF port, and they lost an Elder fight and gave up Elder. Like, it was just the most absurd game. But they won again. That's 2 clutchers they have, which technically they're literally 2 games out of first. It's unthinkable from what happened a couple weeks ago.
It's wild. It's crazy, especially with how tumultuous their games are. And one misplay could easily have turned this. The easiest one to look at is the Evil Geniuses one, where that was not only a stolen Drake for Soul, and then a stolen Elder Dragon with Twisted Fate.
Oh, yeah, I forgot they stole the Soul with like a Graves auto.
Yeah, Graves Splash auto. It's so stupid. But like, they're getting better. And I think that's something that they needed the confidence. It felt like hearing from Huhi a while back, like a few weeks, I think like 2 weeks back, in his interview where he just talked about the draft going the way that it is for them, because mostly for comfort, that they feel like if they're playing a composition that they feel comfortable on and picks that they feel comfortable on, then, that's a good place to start. That was at a time where they were just losing games. And now it feels like their games are generally much slower than you would expect, because they just want more standard games. Especially when you think about some of the losses that they've had. I remember if I remember correctly, there was the C9 one. Either way, there were games where, even talking to Closer while we were doing our shoot for the Twin segment, it was like Twins. It was like talking about how some of those fights were just unlucky. And those are fights that they didn't need to take, right? And it sucks to have fights where you think you should win, you lose anyways, and it impacts the entire game. Because now the solution is either we play better in those fights, or you simply just don't take them because you're in a winning position anyways. And it feels like right now they're just doing the thing where they're just not taking fights that you have to. It feels like a 60-40, 70-30, even if it's in their favor. They'll be like, well, we'll just take the more guaranteed leads, and that's how they're playing right now. I don't expect them to play that like that the entire time up until playoffs. but it's
The
good
games
for
are a
them to
lot
be able to pick
slower.
up wins.
They definitely,
Yes.
anecdotally, they feel slower.
Yeah.
You and I were talking. Abadage does still look off in a
He
lot of his
does.
early laning phases, so he will need to pick it up if they want to win the split. But the slower play, I think a little bit of luck and then a little bit of improvement would be the three things I'm kind of attributing to them going on
Yeah.
this win streak. I can't help to make a bit of a comparison just because I was so hard on FlyQuest at the start of the year when they were 6-1, but I looked at those games and I said, a lot of these are really close games.
Yeah.
Yes, 100 Thieves is on a win streak, but a lot of these are really close games. So I'm trying to like mentally make both of these things make sense because when FlyQuest was winning the close games, I didn't trust the team. And
Yeah.
when 100 Thieves is winning the close games, I'm just like, oh yeah, they're third best team. Like
Yeah.
I'm not really second guessing it, but maybe I should be because of how close these games have been.
I think the reason why I would err on that side of trusting 100 Thieves is because A, they have the obvious, hey, we won a championship with these players. And during the
Titles help.
playoffs themselves, that does help.
Yeah.
During the playoffs too, they've been put in positions where they just had really clutch moments. Closer, unquestionably. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. He's an MVP candidate. The level he played that he's just shown the entire split long. But FBI and Huhi, even though they've been off here and there, like we know what their ceiling is if they have one. Like if we've seen it, I mean. And even though they've had a struggling few weeks, and some could say split, right? Like we know in final weeks when the pressure is on that they'll be there, right? They'll get there. And I also have that faith in Abadaga because last split, he was top 2 mid laner in this region. I had him as the best mid laner. Jizuke was there as well. Like I just thought that he had an insane level of performance. That is for me crazy to believe that he can't get there, knowing how badly he's playing this split.
Yeah.
So that's where I would go with it.
All right. You want to talk about Golden Guardians?
Let's do it.
We had all of on the desk today. It was great because they 2-0'd. It's better to have a 2-0 player guest than an 0-2 player guest. But to me, Golden Guardians' year continues to be so weird.
Yeah.
Like, the instant I gave them credit, which was like 2 weeks ago, it's right after they had like a good super week. And I'll just kind of quickly recap the year. They lost a lot of close games early on in the year. And we thought, okay, surely they will start winning these games soon. And then they did. So we thought that it was just going to be this actually solid playoff team.
Yeah.
Then they lost 4 games in a row.
Yes.
And then they won 2 more. And now they're back in the playoff hunt. But how do you make sense of the ridiculous inconsistency from Golden Guardians?
To kind of even outline it, outside of the week 3 and week 4 where they traded games, like for instance, week 1, 0-2. Week 2, 2-0.
Hey.
I mean, then of course, week 3 was like 1-1 and 2-1 in week 4. But then week 5, 0-2. Week 6, 0-2. And then of course, this week, 2-0. It's just a string of games. And even if you look at the strength of schedule, like these games that they're going up against the team, like they beat Team Liquid as an example, right? And in a lot of their games, like earlier in the split when they were against C9, we talked about in the desk, huge leads that they would throw away. And what Olive would even mention on the desk was the fact that that's just a part of the game that they really didn't focus on.
Yeah.
They focused a lot on how they would be able to get leads. With their 5 coaches, performance coaches, of course, they would be focusing more so on, hey, this is how you can eke out better advantages in laning phase. And a lot of it was just individual reviews on how to get better and better as players in lane. But then, of course, if that's the focus, you're gonna be losing out in something if that's the focus that you'd have. And it felt like the team play in the late game is one thing they sucked. He did say that, and I agree with him, that the mid game was really good for them. Like that's something that they feel confident with. It's the late game that sucks.
And I think late game is also the hardest thing to practice. That's at least what you've coached Golden Guardians Academy as well, so you've experienced how to try and improve a team. But just because of the way League of Legends games consistently diverge, like it's it's part of what makes it such a replayable game across 10 years is because you're not in the same situation as much as you would be in other games, considering you're just replaying the same map over and over again. Because the first 3 minutes are going to feel very similar, especially for like a jungler where they're full clearing. But then the decision trees that can happen after that, depending on the drakes that are there, depending on the rifts that is there, depending on the scaling that is, the matchup in a particular game, who has gold, who doesn't have gold, which turrets are down, which turrets aren't down. You do not get the same late game situation twice. You'll get similar situations, but it's just so much down to instinct and time playing together that, a lot of people that I heard at least, and we were going to talk about this on the desk, but we didn't have that much time, would have a tendency to like flame coaches if a team doesn't know what to do late game. I think that's probably the hardest part of League of Legends to coach, would be late game decision making.
Yeah.
You especially can spend 30 minutes reviewing it, but then the situation is not going to happen again.
Yeah, the same situation is not going to happen again. You can try your best to kind of make those situations feel similar. Hey, talking about what you should do when you have like a side lane composition. Hey, let's try and mimic something like this. So we at least feel like it is similar, but the team needs to be able to talk through those things in the moment, especially, and this is the most important part, there's going to be a different person that's fed and most feels strong in these games, game to game. Yeah. And that person needs to be vocal on what their needs are, how to play around them. Like the team should know how to play around them, but like that person needs to feel like they are in control of the game. Because if you're top laner who's incredibly fed, and there was one game that Licorice had, and that was the 100 Thieves game actually, where he is massive. And he's probably going to look back at that game and say, wow, I should definitely be a little bit more firm in comms about what I need to get this lead. Like placing vision around me so I can start chipping at tier 2s a lot easier, stuff like that. So you're right. They're completely different in how they can look. They're also different in how you should communicate about them. And also, these are players that are just new. In terms of playing with each other, the different dynamics that can to be there, and people will have a different view of the game. And it this sounds like first world problems. Literally League of Legends first world problems of, guys, we are so far ahead. What do we do with this, right? And so
all this money.
all this money. Do we play side lanes? Do we just team fight brute force, right? And so it's more important to find alignment as a team. To be like, look, I may think that we should just stack up Drakes here and just play off once we have Soul more consistently. Or hey, I have a huge side lane advantage. Let me just play on side and let's be patient. If two players disagree, you need to find alignment and agree on a decision. And so without a clear leader, I guess, or person who is vocally confident, then you can just be stuck in those moments and lose focus when it's most important.
And the weirdest thing to me about the Golden Guardians instance is it felt like Ole kind of was that player who's willing to make a play, and you, in a sense, just need to be able to follow him. And we even saw the mic check of one of their fights in their loss to 100 Thieves, where their comms were actually pretty clear. And it seemed like they had the fight. And they even said like, oh yeah, let's just end. But then something just like kind of went wrong with the fingers or their estimation of the fight. They didn't get the kill. They overextended, so they couldn't secure a neutral objective, and they started to lose control of that game in an instant. So to me, I guess where I'm at with Golden Guardians is I still think they are better than their record.
Yeah.
Which is saying a lot because they are 7-8 and tied for a playoff spot. So it's basically like I think they should be in playoffs. Anything can happen next week because they're in that 3-way tie with them, Dignitas, and EG. But I think they do it.
The team I'm a little questionable on are FlyQuest. I mean, they won their game today, which makes it a lot easier.
Right.
But they feel like a pretty spotty team.
8-7, so they're one game ahead. But that's by no means guaranteed. Just really quickly, FlyQuest EG. FlyQuest plays EG, Immortals, and C9. So there's a decent chance they get to 9 because I think they should beat Immortals.
Yeah, they should be in playoffs. I think they should feel pretty confident in that. The team that shouldn't feel confident, if you are fine with me moving away from FlyQuest a little bit.
Go for it.
Dignitas.
Because who do they play?
Well, let's look at it.
You definitely know. They play the big 3.
Oh my God.
They play the big 3. It's trouble.
It's doomed.
C9, TL,
Team Liquid, 100 Thieves. Oh my God.
It's tough. It's tough out
It's
there.
tough. It's really tough. And they just came off of an 0-2 week versus Golden Guardians and Evil Geniuses. And I think their consistent problems, like we talked about it on the desk, is just that um, they need a consistent carry. I think Neo is that carry,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think Neo and Biofrost have been playing damn well, and that's been the case since Neo has honestly joined Dignitas. When it was him and Aframoon, now it's him and Biofrost, and it feels like that's great. But I need a reliable play. I need reliable play from Fake God and I can say Blue, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
fine with Blue's current
Mm-hmm.
performance. It's mostly just Fake God.
Yep.
Um, and I think that's what's harming them. And as much credit as we give River, River for the most part, outside of today where he was playing Viego, um, is playing more facilitating positions, like playing tanks like J4. And I think he does a great job at setting up his team. But then you need to be setting up for a slam dunk. Like you need the people that you're giving the goal to be able to
Mm-hmm.
close out properly. And it's been a struggle for them. It's been really hard. And so I think it's a really good time for Fake God and Blue
Mm-hmm.
to really step up, and I think their bottom lane has been there. So it sucks.
They got one thing going for him.
Yeah, what is it?
I ran into James Baker, who is he's definitely GM. He might be more for Dignitas. He might like also be GM of multiple games. But I was like, yeah, tough week coming up, and he's like, but we always beat 100 Thieves,
True.
which is true. Undefeated,
Yeah, that's
1-0 in
fact.
the regular season, 2-0 in lock-in. So they need that some level of internal confidence if they want to pull it off.
100%. Director of esports. That's who he was.
Director of
Yes.
esports,
There you go. And I mean, I enjoy him. He's a smart
former
fellow.
former
Heroes of the Storm
Heroes of the
champion.
Storm. I was going to say Heroes
Yeah.
of North. Heroes of the Storm champion.
Heroes of the Storm champion. I actually met him 2015, I think.
Nice.
Not like personally, but it was like in a voice comms when I was with. At that time, I was the assistant coach, head
Okay.
analyst for Dignitas Europe.
Okay.
This was the team with Wonders, Senkuks, and all of that, and we got
Ooh.
into the
Yeah. Yeah.
European LCS.
Yeah.
And Odie, when we were in voice comms with him and Baker, he was like kind of talking up Baker a lot because
Yeah.
he was a champion, consistent champion, and
Mm.
uh, he was bringing a lot of championships to Dignitas at the time. He's very well spoken, understands the game a lot, and so like I thought promoting him within the organization makes a lot of sense, even with new ownership. So it's nice to see him in that position, and it was a big risk in the off season to be going for Blue, who a lot of
Mm.
people, including myself, was down on. Um, and it's working a lot. I think this team, and Biofrost as well.
Yeah.
Knowing about where he kind of left off in the scene, these players are performing, and they jived incredibly well right off the gate. So if they don't make playoffs, that's obviously going to be a hit. But I think the fact that they were able to exceed a lot of expectations of being a quote unquote like 10th place team
Yeah.
is already a win.
Yeah. The Biofrost one in particular, it takes a lot of guts because I can just say like fans have been a big fan of Biofrost, but he did not have a good reputation behind the scenes. So I was a little surprised that a team gave him a starting spot, but he's proven to be good. So
Yeah.
like, those types of calls are really hard to make. Let's talk quickly about the top teams in the LCS because
it.
they were silent this week. No player of the weeks, no 2-0s.
Yeah.
It makes our MVP talks less interesting because likely when you look at big picture, a C9 or TL player should be in the MVP race. I mean, I still think that they are clearly the top two teams in the league, but at least there's that shadow of doubt now, which
Yes.
overall is going to be not only good for the entertainment factor, but it's going to hopefully remove some complacency that those teams might have been experiencing.
Exactly.
Fudge in the interview mentioned how they actually have a lot of flaws in their gameplay, and Team Liquid was definitely changing the way they drafted this week. Because generally speaking, top two felt pretty secured, but I kind of feel like they might snap back to like winning mode come Super Week now that there's a chance they lose that bye to 100 Thieves.
I think so too. I think for them, I don't think they should feel confident being able to take, the top two spots, knowing that 100 Thieves are right behind them. But the fact that they're experimenting a little bit, just getting to see challenging themselves and seeing what they can and can't do in the draft, so that when they get into a best of five, the biggest fear is always that you're getting confirmation bias in the things that you're
Yeah.
doing. that hey, we're winning throughout. Like the
Hmm.
worst experience, like the worst feeling is just winning out throughout the season, like doing a T1, 18-0, and then when it comes to playoff time, like the teams around you get better, and the reads that you had just actually weren't true, and you just were just
Yeah.
smurfing with the suboptimal picks on stage, or even just understanding of the game, right? Um,
I'm convinced that happened to 2020 Summer C9, by the way.
Say it again.
I'm convinced the like inability to get a read on what you're playing is good or not happened to
Yeah.
2020 C9
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
because they were like one of the most dominant teams in LCS history. 2020 spring during COVID didn't get to go to MSI.
Yeah.
First place for most of summer split. Total implosion at the end. Fourth place didn't go to Worlds.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, up until the end, at least 90% win rate in scrims against like
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
TL scrimmed them every week. I think twice we had a winning record in scrims.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1-4 or 0-5. Like not every time, but a lot of times. And TL was
Yeah.
15-3 that split. They were
You know what's really funny?
so good.
You know what's hilarious? At that time, I was the academy coach for Golden Guardians.
Yeah.
And I remember peeking in. When you hear that C9 is scrimming Golden Guardians, I was like, everybody wants to see how the scrims are going, right? Um, and at that time, of course, Golden Guardians at the time, everybody saw the amount of Yumi games that were being played.
Hmm.
And then I don't know if C9 lost one of the games. I know, as you would expect, they got smashed, like Golden Guardians smashed in scrims, but like I think they picked off a game.
They
They
did
won a game off
on
of just
stage.
Yumi.
Yeah.
Oh, but Golden Guardians won a game in scrims playing Yumi.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like those type of experiences where you're like that challenges, hey, what is an actual power pick? Like what's the pick? Because like in the LCS and in Academy as well, like Yumi was kind of seen as a really good pick, but not a lot of teams actually played it. It was a game warping play style. And the idea a lot of the supports had is like, oh, you can just kill it in lane, just pick Thresh or Nautilus. And if you could dive it, then perfect, right? It's really weak against that. And if you could protect the dive as the Yumi team, then holy shit, you just scale out of your mind, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you start seeing, in my view, you start seeing C9 start to play Ezreal Yumi, and scrapping
Oh.
with GP on stage, and just
Yeah.
scrapping early and losing games because you're like, wait a minute, that's not how you should play with this comp. And if you're C9, that's not your style. Um,
Oh,
so I don't know
so
how much of
no
an impact
shot.
that had.
Are you talking about this is a tangent, but I think it's
Yes.
worth going down. So I remember watching like a Golden Guardians behind the scenes when they beat C9 in a regular season summer split game, and they said something like 0-25 or like 0-30 in scrims, but 1-0
Yeah.
on stage, like one of those. But
Yeah.
was this Yumi game, the Yumi scrim you're speaking of, before Cloud9 played FlyQuest in playoffs, like roughly?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So I don't know how much of a correlation that is at all.
That's
If
the
that
whole
was
reason
even
they
an
lost.
impact. I like that was just something that I saw at the time, and I was like,
Wow.
oh no,
Wow.
did Yumi warp their
Warp Cloud9's
kind of
understanding of the meta.
yeah, or and even if it's good for the meta, was it good for them? Definitely not. Like it was not a style that they had. I thought they performed incredibly well in the early game, scraps around and Blabber and all that. So I know it was such a super tangent, but it goes back
Damn.
to confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get challenged once, you're like, okay, no, that's the strongest pick.
Yeah, and I mean,
Oh,
if I'm pretending to be a fly on a wall at TL this year, and I see what they did on stage this week, where they tried super hard to snowball Bwipo, and there's a good chance that they had like a reasonable to high amount of success with that in scrims, where they can get Bwipo that like 60 CS lead, 3,000 gold, 4,000 gold mid game lead, and then they just win off of it because the other team is going to throw themselves at a third dragon fight and lose and then FF at 18 and the game's over. But on
yeah,
stage today against FlyQuest obviously had more scaling, which usually happens when you're up against Elution top, and just kind of withstood the storm and won the game. So
yeah,
getting that stage rep in now rather than just crushing in scrims all the way until playoffs and then thinking it's like this ace in the hole of let's snowball Bwipo is good at the end of the
it's
day.
good.
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone should be concerned about TL or C9 dropping games. Would
exactly.
be
Too many people are knee jerky about best of one losses here and there, especially when the goal for the team here is just like to learn as much as possible. A lot of teams just, especially Team Liquid, and C9, And 100 Thieves to a certain degree. They know they're getting in playoffs. They just want to be set up to succeed there.
Okay, let's talk about MVP.
Let's do it.
It's interesting. We're so close to MVP. And to me
This was fast.
last week, Summit was like clearly going to win because he had just mega dumpstered, won his second player of the week, had 6 individual player of the games, led the league in solo kills. And C9 went 1-1 and Summit played okay this week and Blabber super popped off. Are you still like all the way in on Summit or is there a shadow?
I'm still on Summit. I think people will change and they have the right to change. I'm usually pretty resistant to change on things, and I try to value early split, or at least the first half of the split a lot, where I feel like as people, as humans, the recency bias will always be there. Yeah. So I know even if, let's just say worst case scenario, Summit doesn't perform in Super Week, not saying that he just like shits the bed, but mostly just, hey, he's average that week. I still think he gets player of the MVP, because for a good portion of the split, he was completely dominant. He got 2 player of the weeks, which is already, and of course leads in player of the game, which is already a huge accomplishment to begin with. So I don't care too much of how they end the race. The fact that the MVP is just something like it's a whole split wide celebration.
I'm 90% sure I'm voting for Summit.
Yep.
I think you can actually make arguments for other Cloud9 players because Blabber has been so good and Berserker has been so reliable. But Summit has been the flashiest, so I think it's just kind of it's weird. It's not it's harder to give like a League of Legends MVP than it would be an NBA MVP because everyone is sharing resources. It's not like you can have a ball dominant player who just does everything.
Yeah.
I want to play a little game though. Because we know MVP as what I think you and me are aligned that like you need to take in the whole split. And through 15 games, Summit has such a lead that he shouldn't really be able to throw it away.
Yeah, exactly.
But people love a good story.
They do.
What story leads to a different MVP? So first, C9 plays Dig, 100 Thieves, and FlyQuest.
Yeah.
Here's how Closer wins MVP.
Here we go.
Right?
Yeah.
Summit has to run it down. He gets solo killed twice by Fake God in that first game. Right? Boom. He just splits up with Someday. But Closer, Viego, holy shit. Like 10-0, 100 Thieves on the charge, 1 game back of C9. Then, Closer pops off again against Dig. C9 loses to FlyQuest. Like Kumo. He something's possessing him. He takes down someone once again. Tiebreaker game for first place. 100 Thieves takes him down again. That's not going to happen. But like with that story,
if it does,
would you think about Closer? That's a pretty remarkable. Like if all that happened, I think that would change it.
Yeah, and I think people would probably say that I'm knee jerky if that would happen, right? But I've always been.
But that would be 4 games worth of data. That's like 2 weeks.
True, that's 4 games of data. Also, in general, Closer has been performing this entire split, and that like even in their losses, he is still somebody alongside Someday, but mostly him has been the person who's been willing this team into that 3rd place spot. So I think he's for sure an outside vote, but he should be a large consideration. I would be surprised if no one votes for Closer.
Yeah, I think a TL member should also be in consideration. It's just really hard for me to pick one. It was Whippo for the longest time, but the last like 2 to 3 weeks, he's been really underwhelming. Santorin's been super solid. Hans has been super solid, but none of them like stand out to a level that I put them above Summit. I think like, even though no one remembers who 234 is an MVP, I'm really interested to see who 234 end up being.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Especially from Team Liquid, because it has been Santorin who's been the POG leader for that team.
Yeah.
Right? He has been somebody that's been consistently strong. When there are games that either Blippo has been trolling or bot lane has been average, right? It's been Santorin on his Viego, his Zhao, that has been a consistent bright spot for that team. So I think he should be in the running. I think a good super week would tilt me in a way to pick him. It's hard to say. But it would have to be a similar story to
an insane
Closer one.
He doesn't have the head-to-head, but he'll get a head-to-head in the tiebreaker game, and that's going to be the difference type of thing.
There we go. So that's another one. And like I'm sure Team Liquid's gonna people who are gonna be voting for Team Liquid players it's gonna be split across the board.
Yeah.
People will throw votes to Core JJ. It'll happen. And the guy
Even
just
though he missed 7 games.
okay.
It was
So
a lot
it's
of
not.
games. It was a lot of games missed.
Yeah.
Ayla
Okay,
played a
unfortunate.
good chunk of the split.
He did actually.
I think that does it for week 7 LCS. You want to talk about the NBA?
I'm ready to.
Okay, real quick, just for the
Yes.
people watching. I've checked the analytics. Big drop off when we switched to NBA. Big drop off. But I mean, it makes sense. It's a League of Legends podcast. But I'd say the ratio of viewers to people who comment that we should keep doing the NBA chat is high. So we're going to keep doing it for the loyalists out there. You check the standings. We actually had a showdown between the Lakers and the Raptors the other night.
Yeah.
But you went to a game. You saw the
went to a
Raptors
game.
live. They played the Clippers. How'd that go?
That one went really well. It got a little close. So there were moments where Raptors were just like pulling away in the second quarter. I'm pretty sure it was like the second or third quarter. It was they were unsure if Van Vliet was going to be playing, but he did, and so Raptors pretty much were at full power while the Clippers didn't have Paul George and Kawhi, and we're not sure if they're actually ever going to have those players coming into the playoffs.
Yep.
But like, it was pretty close near the end. It came down to a final 3-point shot from Reggie Jackson to see if they could tie it. But no, that was such a good game. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I was worried if it was going to be one-sided one way or another, but it was close and it kept people in it.
Oh man, we're doing this podcast 7:53 p.m. Sunday night. The Raptors are up 3 with 15 seconds left to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh my God. It's happening again. They better win this one.
Yeah, they better win this one. James Harden shooting foul. Call overturned. They retain their timeout. Woo!
Oh my
Spicy.
God.
Okay, the last 15 seconds of this game are going to take 75 minutes. So we can't focus too much on that.
True. So, like, the one thing that I was looking forward to is the fact that the Raptors, they did drop a game to the Lakers, and that sucks.
Yep.
I still need to see the highlight for that one because I couldn't get to watch it. But right now, all I care about is the fact that the Raptors are, like, now 2 games down to the 6th place spot from the Cavaliers. If we can actually take that spot, secure ourselves in playoffs with a pretty good, I think the matchup would be versus... Oh God, it would be versus the Bucks. Either way, look, I'm looking towards the playoffs. We just need to get out of the first round. The Heats are damn good. The Heat, the Sixers, the Bucks. People keep telling me to talk about Boston. I hate Boston, guys. They destroy the Raptors
Boston
every
sucks.
time.
I just hate Boston because I'm a Lakers fan,
But I know that if we face Boston, they'll destroy us. But I'm just saying, I'm a little salty with that team.
I want to keep this on the rails. What is the best way for the Raptors to make it to the second round of the playoffs? Because right now, I'd actually say, and this is going to be massive flame to the Heat, it's to be the 8th seed. Because right now, 7 plays the Bucks, 7 plays the Sixers or the Bucks.
Yeah.
And Miami's the 1 seed. And I think on paper, they're probably a weaker playoff team than either the Sixers or the Bucks. Mm-hmm. Unless you think they have enough lockdown to actually shut down Philadelphia, and that's a better matchup.
I think the matchup versus Philadelphia, they can. They now have size, and that's something that they've been lacking for, the previous year. Being able to pick up Scotty Barnes, Precious Achua, even though like he's been really streaky and kind of poor, but like just being able to have like Kem Birch, just having like larger players in the paint that can probably lock down Joel. Yeah. Just put in your heart out for that one, and hope that James Harden has his typical James Harden playoffs mode. That's all I want. That's all I want.
Playoff James Harden. You want the
playoff
choke
James
to come
Harden.
through.
Exactly, and that's our ticket. I mean, they also traded away, if I'm correct, Seth Curry. So trading away a 3-point shooter like Seth, I think we have a chance there.
That's true.
Every other team, I don't think we have a chance versus. I don't even think we were going to have the opportunity to face the Bulls, who are right now not performing well. So I think it's probably doomed, but we'll try anyways. We'll see how it goes.
To me, the biggest sleeper of the whole year is the freaking Phoenix Suns, man.
Yes.
They are 9 wins better than everyone else in the NBA. And Chris Paul hasn't even been playing.
Yeah.
They're so dominant. Part of it is because they play like great, consistent defense. and then they have a few people who can be reliable scorers.
Yeah.
But like, and I've seen that formula work for like other, I mean, in a sense, like that was the Bucks before they won the title, is they're just like, they're great defense and they have Giannis to get them buckets. So they're just like systematically going to beat teams. But if teams are able to like specifically take things away and game plan for you over 7-game series, they'd fall down. I don't know if that's going to be the case with the Suns. Like they kind of have to be the favorite to win, assuming Chris Paul gets. But everyone's still off on Brooklyn because like KD could come back and Kyrie could, change the law of the vaccine mandate and somehow play.
You could do it. You could find a way.
Ben Simmons' back will heal. Like all these ridiculous things, which maybe
miraculously.
Very last
thing.
I
think the Suns will take it. I think the Suns will take it. I like every time I watch this team. Like you're right. Like they didn't have Chris Paul, and they did get better with Chris Paul. But since the bubble, this team's just been getting better and better around Monty Williams. And I also think DeAndre Ayton is somebody that has just like evolved as a player defensively and also just like as a force. I don't have to say a damn thing about Devin Booker. We already know this guy is a beast.
Yeah.
So this team is just definitely a well-oiled machine, and will probably take it. They deserve it.
Yeah. You know who doesn't deserve anything this year is the Los Angeles Lakers.
There we go.
But they might get it anyway. They're still going to be the most talked about team. I was 100% out on the Lakers until the ridiculous Westbrook sequence against the Raptors. I told you about this morning because all you saw was the Reddit clip of him stealing the ball and hitting the three. What isn't a part of that clip is with 17 seconds left in the game, he hits the side of the backboard with the three. Just like the worst. That would have been the highest upvoted post of the day if he didn't immediately turn it around with like a almost never happened, steal the ball, hit a three to tie the game sequence.
Yeah.
If Anthony Davis comes back, then they need to win both playoff games, dodge the Suns, match up against the Grizzlies, and then lose in 6 games. I think that's
what you see.
Bad. They can't play defense. They have no way of stopping any of the top players on any of the top teams.
And LeBron's getting increasingly frustrated.
Yeah.
There are too many plays where you're just seeing him just like, if his team's dropping the ball defensively, he's just like
so passive aggressive,
visibly pissed. Yes.
Well, he's just aggressive a lot of the time.
Yes. So
it's not good.
He's not liking it for good reason. There's a good reason for it.
But because everyone below them is like legitimately trying to lose, they cannot miss the play-in. So they are trapped. Yeah. They are trapped in 10th. They can be as bad as they want, but they will finish 10th.
They're gonna make it. They're gonna get in there.
They're gonna make it. All right. I think that does it. We kept it under an hour. We kept it under an hour.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, the ones that stuck around to the end. Please subscribe. That means a lot. Good subscriber growth throughout JLXP. Raz will be back in 2 weeks. I'll have Freak next week, and I will definitely have some emergent episodes if big news comes up or if there's a topic that particularly interests me. I'll just drop it in the middle of the week. So that's how you know about those things, is if you're subscribed. So
do it.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.